Welcome to today's deep dive session for September 16th, 2024. Your host today, as usual, are me, Christine Capper. I'm the co-founder of sumApp and Greater Than the Sum, and Kara Martner, who is a big help in all kinds of ways. Today, her big way of being a big help is with tech support. And that's us. Our agenda today is a little bit open-ended. I will do chat intros in a minute, and that will really define what we do. I was thinking of talking about the ladder of inference because I've been writing about social system mapping lately for a book, and last week I was thinking about the ladder of inference, and I thought, oh, let's talk about that maybe. But I want to see what is bringing before we go there. So we'll do the chat intro and then we'll see what happens. And then for those of you who are new to this situation, we'll just see who just showed up. I'm not sure, but we usually do a semi-formal hour session, and then we close at the top of the hour. And anyone who wants to stick around and has more questions or just wants to connect more, we do this optional post-session half hour. So feel free to stick around for that if you have the time and are interested. And GV, welcome. If you'd like to just quickly unmute and say hi, feel free. We'll welcome that briefly.
Hi everyone, my name is Guru. I'm calling from Bangalore, India today. And yeah, this is my first community call, and I'm interested in doing a mapping exercise for a network that I'm trying to initiate. And yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, looking forward to the meeting today.
Great, welcome. Glad you could join us, and in spite of our huge time difference. Okay, so for our chat intros, and this is what I really am interested in, because we have there's a handful of you who I don't recall seeing before face to face, and I may have seen your names somewhere in some kind of mailing list at one point or another, but what I would like to do is just put in the chat your name again, like Guru just did, your name, your location, and pronoun if you're up for that. Jamie, I think you tried to come to my office hours last week and I wasn't there. Is that correct? That's the connection I'm making in my mind. I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's correct, but great to be here now.
Okay, great. Glad we could catch each other one way or the other. And once you've done that, then if you could share just a primary network that you're part of or that you're working with. My general assumption is that you show up here because you have some kind of network weaving interest or capacity or context. Otherwise, I don't know what would bring you here. So if that's not the case, I'll be curious to see. And we had a pop in and a pop out. Cool. And then the last question really is what brings you here today, or what is the biggest sort of question on your mind? What's the one thing that if you went away with from today, you would feel satisfied, would help you feel satisfied at spending your time? I know some of you just like to spend your time with us no matter what, but others of you probably have something specific that's on your mind or that you're curious about. So excuse the cat. So, okay. So I'm seeing, incorporating integrations, data collection as one. That's Jamie's. Best practices as another. So I'm seeing a couple that are just general, I love to be here, or I'm always learning. And so I'm going to trust that whatever we do will work for you guys. And then so best practices, ways to incorporate the tool, and then inspiration. Is that it, Leon? Just sort of deepening your thinking in a general way, or do you have something a little more like concrete and specific?
No, I'd just like to get to know how like maybe see some use cases, how it's used in the end. Because we're very much at the beginning,
Okay.
and I think it could be nice for us to have like maybe to concrete our strategic idea how people are going to use it in the end, our social mapping. And yeah, so maybe I can see from you guys how you are already like using it.
Okay. So, um, I'll just give you in the course of a month, we do 3 public facing sessions, one first Monday, second Monday, and the third Monday. And the first Monday of the month is a place where we do sense making. We talk about systems thinking and complexity thinking, and we share like a tool for systems thinking or complexity, generally from the Human Systems Dynamics Institute. And because there's a number of us who've been through that program. And then we try to connect up how that particular model that we're sharing or activity that we're sharing can be applied to social system mapping. So this is just for future reference. If you're really wanting application and like how people can use maps for sense making, that's a really good session to start with or to go to. And then the second Monday of the month, we do an introduction to a map. So someone in the community is working on a social system map and they share their map. So we're just seeing each other's maps. We're hearing what they've done and how they've worked with it, what they're learning about mapping. So that's a very hands-on, concrete design for brand new people who've never seen a map to have a walkthrough. And then the deep dive session, which is the third Monday of the month, which is what we're doing now, is usually sort of a deeper exploration into a specific topic that's somehow related to social system mapping. And so we have, Kara, if you would put a link in the chat, we have a whole library of previous sessions. And so the sessions called on-ramp sessions are great for seeing specific maps and just sort of seeing the variations and this a kind of overview of to what a social system map looks like. And then if you're wanting to think about use, the sense making sessions are good. And then the deep dives are sort of a little bit like a wild card. So that's today's session. And so sometimes we dig into some specific technical thing about mapping, and sometimes it's a very general sort of systems thinking thing, and it can be anywhere in between. And so I'm saying all that because I'm trying to navigate how to meet the needs that you guys talked about, which are, there's a few different angles to that. And not, so like I want to share, so I think what I'll do is here, I know what so it's coming to me. Just a second. I think what I'm gonna do is just walk us through, and for those of you who know all this, hopefully the questions that get asked or something new will emerge that you haven't heard before. But for those of you who are new, I'm going to just sort of walk us through a very high level of how the process works. Take a couple moments, just a few minutes to walk through a specific couple of maps, and then I'll just stop and let you, especially the new people, just ask specific questions. So like, what didn't land, or what didn't I touch on yet that you would like to dig deeper into? How's that? Does that sound? I'm just so that's what I'm going to do, unless someone would strongly suggest some other additional step or approach. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the little various emojis that people use to communicate. Okay, so I think I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? So a social system map starts with designing a data gathering. Well, so there's my partner and I, and Kara works on this a lot with us, have designed and continue to update and keep working the tool called sumApp, which is a data gathering tool, which is what you're looking at right now. It's kind of a super fancy survey designed specifically for the purpose that we use it for. So there's lots of surveys that do things that our survey won't do, and none of those surveys do what ours does exactly. So it's a very, very targeted survey for a very specific purpose. And we start, and the survey constitutes these three tabs, which I'm going to walk through briefly. All of this is, and I think you all know this, but I'll just say this platform, this data gathering platform, is available by subscription online. So anybody can use this platform to make their own social system maps. All of this text here is editable. All of this is about what we're going to do with the data. And then each survey has a place for each member of the network to upload a picture of themselves and a little teeny thumbnail. So this particular instance is for our community of practice map. So the people who show up to these meetings and the people who are curious about social system mapping, and even just people who are curious about social system mapping and who would like a hands-on experience of it, and to see a map from the beginning to end, can put themselves on our map. So even if you only show up once, if you're curious about the hands-on experience, you can, Kara has put a link in the chat, and you can do that, and you can put yourselves on our map, and you'll be on there fairly shortly. So, and everyone who is on the map has their own unique link. So this is mine. I wouldn't share my link with anybody else in the network, because it's my survey and I can come back to it whenever I want. I can update it whenever I want, and it's my information that's in this link, and everybody will have their own. So front page just explains what to do. Second page is the profile or the survey page. This is generally where a social system mapping project starts, which is in whoever the sponsor of the mapping project is, or the lead of the project, and whoever, and it's going to depend on context, how much collaborative input you can get, how much feedback you can get from the different perspectives in the network. But the starting point is to figure out, what is it that we want to understand from our map? What is it we want to understand about each other, etc.? What would be useful information? So we start with designing a survey. And so this is our survey. This is for our community of practice. This is not, there's nothing standardized here. There's a template in sumApp, but we strongly advise you just to not use the template, but to use it as a guide to getting started. And especially those of you who haven't been through this, I didn't say this yet, and I would like, I'm going to pause and say this. A, I'm talking fast, so I need to slow myself down in any case. And B, if there's a clarifying, if I'm saying something and you have a strong, like, I just need to understand this one thing before I can continue to pay attention. If something sort of jumps into your head that needs attention now, feel free to interrupt me and just And I'm not necessarily looking at the faces. I mean, I'm going back and forth, but I can't see everybody because we're sharing the screen. No, I know I can do that. I think, no, still not everybody, but so what I'm saying is just unmute and chime in verbally if you have a clarifying question, please. Since what we're doing today is really just basically for you new people to get as much of the need that you brought in the door met. So, okay, hope I'm making sense. So this is, again, the survey is totally custom for your context, for your community, for your network. And designing the survey is usually the first step. The more collaborative it can be, the better. And again, this survey is relevant for our context as mappers and people who are doing mapping in networks. So that's why these questions are the questions that they are. So you get your survey, you design your survey, you generally, so as a best practice, our advice is to have some people from different perspectives. There's usually different populations, different identities, different sort of roles in the network. So get as much input from as many of those different perspectives or roles as possible in generating the survey. And the challenge here, though, is that until people see an actual social system map, it's hard for them to understand. Like there's a connect between the way that we're gathering the data and the way that we're visualizing the data, that it's very helpful for people to actually see something, like see a social system map, even if it's a prototype, if it's just a little simple pilot test. Then they start to see, oh, the data is landing here, this is going there, that's going there, and then it sort of helps to land it. So before I finish this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show how this, I mean, before I finish going through the sumApp setup steps, what we like to do is have, so this is the visualization tool. So what I was just talking about was the data gathering tool. And the visualization tool is, so sumApp gathers the data, structures it, and you just put a link into the data visualization tool, which is Kumu, and it shows up in the data shows up in Kumu in a graph data format. So, and right now we're just, there's different, sorry. I'm trying to talk succinctly and it's sort of like, there's a lot to say. And so I'm just starting to stumble over myself. So this is Kumu, the data that we've gathered. So each of these people in our network, or who have added themselves to our network map, our social system map, this is, each one of them has their own page, like I just showed you in sumApp, and they've gone in and answered, most of them have gone in and answered questions. And so if you click on the nodes of the people, then this is the responses that they gave to those exact questions in the survey. So all of the survey data shows up, all of the data from this page shows up in this side panel for each person in the network. So then, and in this, I'll come back to that, but so that's what's happening with the person, with the data about the individuals, which is what's listed here or asked for here. And then we have this other part, and this is why it can be kind of confusing for people, and it's very helpful to show them, we ask this here and it lands there, and then they can understand how the data is flowing and be more creative in their thinking about how we ask the questions. But so every single person who has their own unique link to this whole thing is showing up as what we call a member tile. So this is a person in our net who has filled out our survey and added themselves, this person, and she added, so this is the picture she uploaded on the first page, and this is the little bit of thumbnail blurb that she gave us on the first page. And so everyone, you'll see all of us, most of us in this map You'll see sort of the history of people who've been showing up for the last many years. And you just keep scrolling down, you'll see more and more people. And then who are on our map, you can filter, sort it in different ways, like who's the most, oh, Leon just added himself. I think that's you, maybe. Okay. And here's Denise. So you can see people. Oh, and I need to change it's Denise and I've had. I haven't. I just changed my reporting on my connection to you, Denise, because we've had conversations that I feel like were generative. So I shifted that. So what you can see, what I'm doing is for every person in the network, if you pop open the tab, you can see a set of questions about, this is about my relationship to Carol. So how well I know Carol, I could tell a little story about why I connect with Carol. These are, again, just like with the survey, these are all custom. These are all defined by you. So you might not want to know what kind, do people interact on social media or not? You might not care, so you wouldn't use a question like that. Or you might, but you might have other kinds of questions, such as, you know, what kinds of work do we do together, depending on the network? What, you know, any kind of, what do you appreciate about this person? So you could make all kinds of different questions, and these questions are about the one-on-one relationship from one person to another person. And so that's the connection questions. And then what's happening there is, and I'm going to just show you a different view here, is that, so here you can see the dots are that survey page information. Oops, that's not right. That's me. You can see this is the data that I put in sumApp in answer to those questions. But I also have, as you could see, answered questions about relationships that I have with people in the network. And these lines represent those relationships. So here's Mary, who's in our call. And if I, let's see, can I do this? Right, clear focus. I'm going to focus just on me and Mary. Oh, okay, well, I'm just going to pick any old line. So sorry, things are bouncing around quite a bit. I'm trying to not be too confusing visually, but it's happening, I can tell. So if we click on a link, and things are behaving a little oddly right now, I'm not sure why. Okay, so we're going to say Tim Hansen, that's my partner, that we've selected this link from Tim to Andrea, and now we can say that they're collaborating, and they're working on a mapping project together. And so those are the questions that Tim answered about Andrea in that member panel. He could have answered more, but he didn't. And if he had answered more, there would be more data there. I'm trying to see if I can do that. So that's the way the data is flowing and the way it's showing up in the map. And I'm not going into, I'll just say one more thing about the ways. So once the data is in Kumu, so my partner Tim and I built this data gathering tool to dovetail with Kumu, but Kumu is its separate standalone tool. We don't have any control over what Kumu does, what they make possible or not make possible. We just do our best to stay on top of it and know how to work with it. And so we have different views. You might have noticed when I first came in here, there were no lines. That's because our norm is to start with something simple that doesn't totally overwhelm people, because there's a lot of information there, and we've experienced that people can get pretty overwhelmed pretty quickly. But we do have filters, so any of the data that we gather can be filtered based on in this instance, one of the things we want to know in our community practice is how committed, how into social system mapping are people. If it's a main component of their work, then they answer that, and we can see, okay, these are the people, if I need real help in technical stuff, I can reach out to them. Or they've spent time or money learning it, but it's not a main component of their work, or they're just curious and supportive, but they're not invested in it. So those are the kinds of questions in our network, but it could be like, what watershed do you live in, or what state are you in, or it could be what skills do you bring to the table. Could be all kinds of things. We can filter on any of the questions that are in sumApp. And so this Kumu interface also, I think what my point is this Kumu interface is also totally custom. We design what we're doing with the views, and we make different views to tell a different story. So for instance, this view is telling us the other networks that people come from, because most of our mappers come from other various kinds of networks. And so we can see that that's a question in the survey, and we're clustering on that question. Another thing that we can do with social system mapping is to track the development of the network over time. So this particular instance of sumApp, my instance of sumApp, has been around since early 2019. And ever since 2019, as new people add themselves to the map, they just show up as a new member tile. I answer questions about them, and the map has grown over time. And we built into sumApp the capacity to track that growth over time. So I'm going to slow myself down. I'm talking too fast again. So this is what the network looked like in 2019. You can see, where's Mary? There's Mary. So she's been around for a long time. And then 2020, we added some new members came into the map, and there became more questions or connections. So we went, from 19 elements and 41 connections across them now to 79 and 231 connections across them. And so this is the development of the network over time. And this is what we have now, is 208 elements and 916 connections. So we're both looking at the people, we're looking at the relationships across the people, we're looking at the various other dimensions that are important in the network, and we're looking at all of that over time. And I'm going to stop. So I'll just finish. So in terms of best practices, Guru, we try to get a small handful of people who are interested in helping to develop this process and helping to sort of own move the map forward, inform the map, help design the map. So sometimes that's 3 people, sometimes it's 20 people, but we try to convene a group of people who will give their input and their support. We try to get them on the map as soon as possible. Like sometimes it's just, there's, a very simple connection, one very simple connection question and no survey questions, but we have them go through the sumApp interface and plug their answers into Kumu. And right away we can say, see, here are the dots and here are the lines. And now what would we like to know about the dots? And now what would we like to know up in the lines? And get their sort of understanding of the process and the content from the start, and then begin to develop it out and add more questions, get feedback on the questions. And then once we feel like we have something that looks pretty good enough to run with for starters, with caveats saying this is new and we're still looking for feedback, then we start to roll it out to another layer of, connected people, and then another layer. So best practices, essentially is to start hands-on as early as possible with the people who are helping inform it, to be as iterative as you can within the context of your capacity. Sometimes you just can't go through lots of changes. You just, you just need to sort of design it, run with it, and then see what happens, get people's input. But so I'm just saying, as much as possible, input from others, hands-on as early as possible, as iterative as possible. And lastly, this is a technological tool, And often I see people believing that this tool is going to solve their network development, relationship building problems. Like, we're going to put this map up and then everybody's going to know, everybody's going to reach out and start connecting to each other, and my life will be easier and I can get on with doing the actions of the network. And I say, if you hold it in your mind that way, you're going to be disappointed, because the map helps us see things that we can't otherwise see, and it enables more agency for people to reach out to each other in the network. And the truth is, it takes time for people to develop that kind of mentality and that kind of paradigm, and it doesn't just happen all at once. And it still requires a significant amount of introducing the map to people, helping them learn how to navigate it, helping them think about how it could be useful to them, helping them learn how to make use of it, how to sense make with it together, etc. So it's a tool or a technology that you can use to support your work, but it's not going to replace the work. It will enhance it. And realizing that, and just getting comfortable with a lot of this takes a lot of repetition, just because people aren't used to thinking in this way, and they're not used to, there's a lot of underlying, like assumptions built into social system mapping that are different for people. And so it takes repetition. Okay. That's as much spiel as I have at the moment, and I'm hoping I touched on some of what each of you, especially who are new. I know, Jamie, I know I did not talk about integrations, and we'll touch on that. But I want to, before I go any further, I want to just stop and maybe give each of you, let's start with Leon. If there were one more big question that you're holding that I didn't respond to, that you would like to know, what would it be? And if you don't have it, if you don't want to respond, just don't bother. I mean, just say, wave me off or something. But if you would like to say one big thing, what would it be?
No, thank you for the introduction, but there's no like one big question I could come up with just now. So I would pass on the ball.
Okay. Can I, before we pass on you, can I say, is there one big or medium-sized one thing that you discovered that you didn't know before you showed up today? And again, no pressure.
I only knew Kumu. I didn't know sumApp yet.
Okay.
And since we're in Europe, we have some like bit different laws about like data collection of people. They're a bit stricter here.
Yep.
Which has its benefits, but also sometimes its weaknesses.
Yep.
So therefore, I think I will have to use something else than sumApp, and we'll have to come up with our own way. What to use.
So we have a lot of clients in Europe.
Ah, you do?
Yeah, I mean, people do use it. I think, yeah, it's just a matter of getting comfortable with. And a Kumu project can be private. So I don't know if you know that factor in Kumu, but a whole map can be, very private. So it's just a matter of how you set it up. But
yeah, true. I guess we will, in the end, I think we will want to work with something that is public, I guess. And
it can be public as well. I'm just saying, if there's a data privacy issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be just like us figuring out what we have to like. In the end, people have to accept just some terms.
Yeah, that's how it usually works. But yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for that feedback. That's helpful. Guru, would you like to say what, if there's one big thing that you haven't heard that you would like to know before we're done with our call this evening?
Yeah, I definitely got to know a bit more about. I did some research background research. I went through some um, videos that you've done before and tutorials, and read through some of it. I also made a survey, and yeah, I have played around with it. I've sent it to a couple of people. So yeah, it's a really interesting exercise. And one of the things I really want to know is, so there's this community that I want to, catalyze, and like it's like there's a lot of energy in this community that I want to, put on a map and like see how we can like help each other out. I want to understand like what is the best way to go about it, because I know, just sending them a link and asking them to fill out the survey is not going to help, because like from what I've learned so far, it's not like I think I really have to be on their back to like nudge them to fill the form and like be part of the map.
Mhm.
So yeah, just wanted to know, is there like something that you do or you've learned from your experience talking to others, how to go about this? Like, is what kind of activities do I have to do in order to actually get them to engage in this map building exercise?
Okay, so if we okay, so one question I have is, does this group of people that you're trying to catalyze, is there already some amount of discussion amongst the people about generating an intentional network? I mean,
Yeah, I've spoken to a few people, and there are like WhatsApp groups and LinkedIn groups which has like 100 to 150 people in total.
okay,
And yeah, I think they would be interested. Like I haven't spoken to everyone in private, but
okay,
the few of them that I've spoken to, they really think it's valuable to make this map and see how we can build this out.
okay.
So there is, yeah, interest for sure.
Okay, so here's what I would do is I would start with the people you've already talked to who are interested. I would find a time that works for them. And then I would invite them and like make an invitation to the whole, whatever groups you have access to the whole network, to say, we're going to work on a social system map. If you're interested in helping to inform this, or you'd like to learn more about it. So start with like scheduling around the people who are already interested, but try and invite anybody who's interested to show up. Have a meeting where, and this, depending on how much time you think you can get people to show up for, sometimes it's just, here's what we're going to do, and we want your input and your support. And that's like, and a little bit of hands-on touching of of an example map, or like if you can get them to put themselves on your pilot or prototype map. But so depending on the capacity, time you can get with them, go from, at the simplest, here's what we're going to do. I want to make sure you understand it. And we want to invite you to work on it with us, to really a deeper dig into what is this? How does it work? Making sure that they really understand the whole, like the technology and what's possible, and engage them in thinking about, like, how could this be useful? How would we use it? Who might want to use it? What would they use it for? What would they need? So like from the beginning, piquing, enticing people's curiosity and their creative thinking about how it can be useful, and how to introduce it to the whole network. So what I see happening that works best is a small group, they get sort of charged up about it, and then you put the question back to them, how can we introduce this to your connections? How can we introduce this, and how can they help? So what tends to work best, rather than one big email blast to 100 names, like you get a list of names and you throw it in there and you think that's going to solve the problem, but nobody will open it. rather than that, support 5 people, you know, like just like I've seen people like make a list. This is the whole list. And then some of your interested people saying, I know this person, identifying who on the list they know, and them reaching out personally, like saying, I'm going to send you a link. Just, I mean, there's technical pieces that I can't go into in detail, but essentially getting the members of the network to help spread the word, help as well as inform the design and to build it. And there come a point when it reaches a certain amount, you know, a certain amount of people on the network and activity that other people start to want to be part of it, or are willing to sign on to it simply because they see there's a lot of people and there's a lot of links, and maybe that's cool. But a lot of just real inquiry with the interested people that are that are already interested. Yeah, I'm repeating myself. And iterating out from there. Does that help?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, testing it out with the core group and have them really be convinced in the process and the goal of, making this map, and yeah, spreading out from there.
Yeah,
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
yeah. And I'll just say one principle. I'm guessing you already know this, but I'm just going to say it anyway, because I see this a lot, is people will say, how can they use the map, as if we're going to tell them how they're going to use the members on the map. And I say, ask them. Don't tell, like, our goal is not to generate the answers to the hows or the whys. Our goal is to generate the questions, and then to the degree that we can support other people stepping into making, helping resolve the questions. But even just getting there, thinking on, is this useful? Isn't it useful? I'll start with, like, is this even useful? Do you even think this would be a good thing? Which you would think, because I do these, I would not start there. But if I don't start there, then we have a very different dynamic than if I get them to say, yeah, I think that could be, whatever. So that's just a principle that I would advise. And I think I'll go to Jamie now, and then we'll see how much time is left after that. But thank you, Guru. That was helpful.
Yeah, that was helpful for me too. I think that's sort of where we're at, is also trying to figure out how to get people to buy in to the tool. Because we sort of have, like, our onboarding process, people fill out an intake form and then they end up signing up for, like, our social media platform, which is on Mighty Networks. And the way our team found out about this tool was through, like, the Impact Networks book, and they refer a lot to this. And like, if it's helpful to anyone, that link, it's to the book, but there's also a toolkit within that kind of tells you how to, like, build out, and that's been super helpful for us. But I think what is difficult is getting people to sort of buy into creating a profile on here. And so I think we're trying to figure out is how could we maybe sort of leverage the onboarding steps we already have to just seamlessly feed into this without requiring a whole other step for people. And I was talking, I think it was Michelle at Kumu, who was trying to just, emphasize just using Google Sheets and maybe using, I forget what it's called, but like
JSON file?
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm just trying to figure out ways, like, what integrations do exist so that it doesn't have to be a whole other step for people when they're onboarding onto the network.
Yeah. So you and I can talk. I think I gave you a link for us to schedule a meeting to talk more specifically in detail about ways of getting data from one tool to another. The shortcoming in the other tools that exist is most of them aren't designed to iteratively over time gather relationship data. It's really easy to gather profile data from any form in the world, getting that structured properly is a no-brainer at this point. technically, but it's those relationship questions and adding more and more relationships over time. That is what sumApp does that those other tools don't. But we can, and we do make it so that you can upload what we call pre-existing data into sumApp, but that's a manual step. And last thing I'll say is that sumApp does generate a JSON file, or you can put it into a Google Sheet that other tools can read. So if you're setting up integrations, like using something like Zapier or something, you can pull the sumApp data out and use it in other places. But I know that doesn't solve the key problem, which is you have one place you're already gathering data. But anyway, I think you and I can talk more specifically, because if we get more granular than that, it won't be relevant to anybody else, and it will take some time. But is there like a high level piece of that I didn't touch on that would be helpful for you?
No, I think that's great. I'm curious too, like, is there a template or anything, sort of just like ways that we should be framing data or like asking questions to sort of get those relational pieces over time? Maybe in our Google Sheets or like in our forms that feed into Google Sheets.
I'm not entirely positive I understand the question.
Like, how should we be surveying folks in a way that to sort of have that existing data feed into sumApp easily?
So I think you're already doing some of it, the profile stuff, right? In Mighty
Okay.
Networks. Yeah, if it's
Alright.
person-to-person data, I think you're already gathering it. And if you want to gather from different places, then we would have to have a conversation about the complexities of that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But there was also, I'm remembering now, there's also a piece about buy-in that you were referring to.
Yeah.
And really, so there's sort of two contexts I want to address. One is, if you're a well-funded network and you have staff, I think you're a staff of a network, and I think there are other staff in your organization, such that you can support just doing it without needing the energy of non-staff people. You can do your thing, make it, and then the buy-in, once it's sort of up and running, the buy-in comes from having people having an experience. We call it either socializing or embedding the map, where people there's context when people are together trying to solve problems, or you bring them together just for this purpose, but where they're being introduced to the map and being curious, posing questions, having people learn how the map can help them answer those questions. But doing activities with the map, with the network, so that people get comfortable with it and start to see the value in it. That's one way of doing buy-in. A sort of a slightly more top-down way of doing buy-in, which is get it up and running and then start having conversations. But if you're a smaller network and you don't have quite the staff support or the ability to just move forward, then like what I said to Guru about engaging people in the network, problem solving around the map, getting shared understanding about how it can be useful. That is the buy-in process. There isn't an argument you can make that will force people to want to do this. I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years, and it's like, yeah, I've seen people come up with all kinds of like great arguments, and it doesn't mean anything unless people are making the arguments in their own heads and they're actually using it together, and they're actually not even, most people aren't going to make the arguments in their own heads. The truth is most people are going to look at it and go, it doesn't make any sense to me. But when they sit together, and when one sort of has a little bit of an idea and then another one sort of starts to build on it, they actually collectively start to create the argument and create the need and create the understanding together. So that's another piece of that I would a principle is as little one-on-one conversations as possible, because they're not going to build anything, and having, I mean, one-on-one conversations are absolutely crucial at, for key pieces, but as much having these conversations with others and helping people hear each other is going to be more generative in terms
Gotcha.
of people's understanding. Yeah.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we have 5 minutes left. And I'm gonna, we'll just want to hear from, just briefly from each of you, especially you new people, if you're willing, just one thing that you're taking away from this conversation. Just a short few words before we wrap up.
Yeah, I think definitely what you shared about, how to go about it, how to get the buy-in was really useful for me. Yeah, because I'm just getting started, and I think it's critical that, I get the buy-in from the initial group of people, and yeah, build out from there. So yeah, this was really good.
Great, thanks. Would anyone else like to share? Just one thing you're taking away? Liam.
In general, I would take away a good portion of motivation.
Good, thank you.
And I'm
Good.
looking forward to join the on-ramp and the sense making as well.
Great, cool, thanks. Anyone else have? Jamie, go ahead.
I hadn't seen the sort of year by year feature. I thought that was really helpful. I think that's especially going to be helpful to us to see how we grow year by year.
Yeah, and just so funders love that, because funders are funding networks, and that's like one of the few things that can tell them that relationships are actually developing over time. So they like that feature. Okay,
Oh.
go ahead.
Who's funding networks? I want to know.
Yeah, people have funding. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just...
Yeah, it's a challenge. Financial resources can be a big challenge. So Kara, so we're gonna have Kara will do announcements, and then we will do our little goodbye ritual. And which I'll explain in a moment. And then if you want to stick around and you've got more questions, feel free to just stay online. You don't have to stick around for the whole half hour. We'll just continue to chat as long as any of you wants to. But Kara, yeah, if you would share announcements.
Absolutely. So as we kind of discussed earlier, but as a reminder, our first Mondays are always our sense-making sessions. And so that will be coming up on October 7th. And Christine is going to be sharing the landscape diagram for that session. And then our second Mondays are an on-ramp where we'll hopefully have a new map to share, but I'm waiting on confirmation from Evan to confirm for sure. And then on the third Mondays of the month are our deep dives. And this will be another interesting one where Sarah Shanahan, who's another community member, is coming back to share more about her learnings from the REAMP ripple effects map. And for the link that I shared earlier about past session recordings, I think she did an on-ramp maybe 2 or 3 months ago for that one. So if you want a little background context before you join, and then I will just put links.
That was a deep dive.
Was it a deep dive?
It was a deep dive, yeah, because we weren't showing the map. We were talking about the process of designing the map in that
Love
one.
it.
Yeah.
And I will reshare the links again real quick.
Okay, thanks. And then for our goodbye ritual is just, we want to have closure, and we want to have send us all off with some good feelings. And so we'll all unmute. I'll count down 3, 2, 1, and then we just give each other our appreciation and our blessings and our love for the rest of the day. So if you're ready, go ahead and unmute, and then we'll go 3, 2. There's a jackhammer outside my window. 3, 2, 1. Thank you all for showing up.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day.
Bye
So happy
bye.
to have new
Have a
faces.
wonderful
Good to
day
see
and
you.
evening.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Take care.